government. The earlier government started it, this government extended it. So it's not to do with any government. The movement revenue, like for example, he's talking of teachers should be paid well. I agree, teachers should be paid well. Let us challenge the government to say a teacher should be paid as much as an income tax officer. Deal with that. Both are government servants. Why should a teacher be paid 20,000 rupees and an IT officer paid 80,000 rupees? Deal with that from that perspective, then saying, okay, they're paying 20,000 rupees, let us all fund it to make it 80,000 rupees and let the student fund it. That is when you lose equity, and that has to be challenged. And the challenge must come from the government side of it. We all should be standing up and saying, challenging the government, saying, why are you paying the teacher 20,000 rupees and why are you paying an income tax officer 80,000 rupees? That's when you'll bring back equity. I hope I understood.
Great perspective, sir. I think one thing that is universal is that all of you are focused on teacher professional development, educators' welfare and well-being. Manoj, do you have a point of view on this, given that you deal a lot with teachers in the suburban area and tier 2 markets? Are they looked after well? Is their professional development really happening?
See, whether they are looked after well or not, it's very well known. So everyone knows it. See, the way I see, because I travel a lot, meet students, principals, vice chancellors. So the way I see, it's a big challenge as far as time is concerned. We don't have so much time. Look at it from the demand-supply point of view. India being a youngest nation, you can say the push from the bottom is going to become very, very fast. In the sense, if the demand for, you can say, the various kind of courses, seats, etc., were 10%, it is going to be another 3, 4, 5 years. It is going to be like, you can say, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. The real question is whether it is NEP or not NEP. Are we able to cater it with that speed? So it's really a very big challenge of the capacity building, number one. Number two, a lot of things being talked in NEP for critical thinking and so many things. Let's take one small example. CBSE has already in its played design thinking. Fine. Now the first question is, the moment you are talking about the critical thinking, design thinking, etc., and going to implement it, the first thing is required the use cases, and several use cases that is coming out of the India itself. You cannot buy it from the US or somewhere else and then try to implement it. So the way I see it, I see the sense of urgency, because time is very less, and it is going to be a very big push sort of thing.
Right. I want to pivot slightly to higher education maybe. And, when we had a discussion before this panel, we talked about making the education ecosystem more inclusive. In a lot of instances, some of you felt that the government is precluding private sector in some areas. I want to get your perspective, especially in the context of short-term courses, micro-credentials, which are not run by public universities. And their private sector has done a phenomenal job, in terms of upskilling, reskilling. So I want to get your perspective on how can the ecosystem become more inclusive and participative for the private sector?
See, in any case, private sector is going to play a very big role, and it has to be. The reason is, let's take the NEP in the university. They are calling VAC and SAC, value-added course, skill development course, VAC and SAC. This is how they call it. Now the question is, just next year, we are going to face a big issue. When the NEP was implemented 3 years back, fine, 4 years system. So what happened, the real pressure in the university is not yet felt, because the real thing in the 4th year is all about the project-based learning, fine. So all who's coming from the bottom, they have reached to the 3rd year. Now next year, they will reach to the final year. Now the question is, are we ready next year? What to do in the 1 year where you will bring so much of project-based learning? Can university do it? No. Even if they are willing, the kind of adoption, development, in any case, it is going to come from the private sector. Now, what kind of collaboration, participation, etc., is going to happen? That's really demands a lot of thinking in the private sector side also, like the Vinay sir is here from the Pearson and IBM or whatever it is. The reason is why I'm saying all these things, because look at from the content point of view, because content is not going to be a big problem, whether it is Swamy or not Swamy. whether it is Swamy Plus or XYZ, whatever it is. So in any case, content is going to come in tons. आने वाले दिनों में content तो आ जाएगा, content की issue नहीं होगी. The real issue is going to be there in terms of the learning outcome. और अब सिर्फ हम लोग जहाँ बहुत प्रेशर बिल्ट होने वाली है यूनिवर्सिटी में, आप यहीं पे एक बात कर लीजिए ना, दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी की. दिल्ली यूनिवर्सिटी में 3 लाख स्टूडेंट होंगे, फाइन. अब ये 3 लाख स्टूडेंट अगले साल फाइनल ईयर में जाएंगे. हाउ यू आर गोइंग टू सर्व दीज थिंग? फॉरगेट अबाउट इंडिया. 3 लाख स्टूडेंट को आप प्रोजेक्ट बेस्ड लर्निंग और प्रोजेक्ट टेस्टेड तक कैसे कराओगे?
Right. I want to get practitioners' perspective. I'm sure Ujjwal and Vinay, you engage a lot with regulators and policymakers.
My perspective on this thing is very, very different. I don't know how many of you realize that the subjects, math as a subject, came from a skill called logic. English as a subject came from a skill called communication. Project-based learning, new sets of skills. Kitni baar, when a teacher goes inside a class, she's thinking, no, I'm not teaching math, I'm going to teach logic to students. Or I'm not teaching English, I'm teaching communication to the students. The problem is nothing. Even 100 years back also, these subjects came from skills. Subjects didn't come from in the thin air. कि कल सुबह से math पढ़ाएंगे. ऐसा कभी नहीं था. We want to teach logic, math was a subject. After almost 200 years, you have a new subject called coding and robotics, which says that can help you build logic. When you do coding, it helps build logic. Yeah? My perspective is very simple, that just by putting it on a document, whether project-based learning, skills will not develop. Until unless we change to say that, are we looking at our classrooms from the perspective of skill building, whether you're teaching any subject. Subject is a medium through which you're teaching a skill. Or are you seeing it from the perspective of syllabus completion? If it is about syllabus completion, 2 projects karane hain, teachers will get it done.
I just want to add one point in Ujjwal's point. See, as he is saying, it's very right to see it from the skill point of view. We are talking a lot about AI. AI is what? Advanced mathematics. Yeah. So the question is, if the fundamentals are not good in the school or you can say the college system, what you are going to achieve in the mathematics? Whether you tie up with the NVIDIA or XYZ, the question is not about the digital infrastructure. The real thinking has to be there. So in a sense, it's very right.
Right. I want to circle back to the original question, which is, what has been your experience of dealing with regulators and policymakers when it comes to private sector participation? I mean, in some cases, they might have been resistant to change or accept private sector players. So any use case where they have been really open to the idea of having private sector take the lead?
Okay. I think we have been working with a lot of governments, government organizations, both state and central. While there are a lot, I think the critical piece is, can government alone implement NEP? Answer is no. Let's be very honest with that. Because the government changes, bureaucrats changes very frequently. They cannot do it alone. Can they completely privatize it? That's also not a problem. That's also not a solution, right? And Maheshwer made it very right. It's not about who is the winner, is it private or public? It's not that. It's about how do we build partnership? How can they work with private, make it affordable? Because like Mahesh said, there is education says that we are all paying in your income tax. I don't know how many of you know. There's education says, then you have a secondary higher education says. It goes out of your kitty every year without knowing. Only in July you will have that pain, yeah, I paid so much taxes. Every time you, in my state, in Karnataka, every time I fill my petrol vehicle with a diesel or a this, I'm paying education cess. People don't know this. I'm paying road cess. Only thing is, are we using it for the right resources? 1,50,000 crores, 80,000 crores. Is it being used wisely for the reason why it was collected? I think that's the answer. But some of the state governments, we were working with Tamil Nadu Skill Development Corporation. They are doing a bit of a work on skilling. We have been partnered with them, and we are doing English language learning for them. And they are looking at about 100,000 learners that we are skilling them this year. But if you ask me, Vinay, I'm a chartered accountant. If you ask me, Vinay, is it profitable? Answer is no. But I'm able to cover my cost. But is that fair for me? Because My time has gone into it, all the way to, and I've made multiple trips to make sure that and that's the need, right? But at some point it has to break balance.
Right, so meaningful and if not profitable, the partnership should break even. Yes, please.
I think there is no option for the government but to partner with private initiatives because the kind of objectives that NEP set for itself, the government cannot do it by itself. They don't have the mind space to think through the whole thing or create those small things that work. It can be a small certification, small skilling and all. And there is no option for us as a country but to trust skilling and certification because we don't have enough capacity to go through formal education. For example, you take Delhi. Delhi has 2.95 lakh students who are passing out of class 12 and taking an exam, at the end of the year. The total seats in DU is 87,000. Where would the 2,10,000 students to go? And it's the same problem everywhere. The number of students who are passing out of class 12 versus what you have on the other side, there is a serious problem. These people will have to be held by a certification skilling course. And unless we start treating these courses as one of the pathways for employability and demographic dividend, but at this point, we're taxing that because the student is going through that. We actually have a problem. The government must acknowledge, recognize that we are partners to ensure that this country progresses to the next level. When you have an entrance examination, there is an entrance coaching center also. When you have a job problem, you actually have a skilling course, and so on and so forth. So there is no option for the government but to do that. It is for us to go and convince them that we are partners with you, and we are going to walk along with you for the growth of this country. And that's something that we should be doing a lot more by talking correctly, rightly, at times candidly.
Right. I want to touch upon very quickly, before we are out of time, about one more aspect of digital, which is assessments. And Mr. Peri, you've talked about some of countries' high-stake examinations a lot. What's been the impact of digital on high-stake examinations? And what I want to focus on is that, is it okay to go the online way when it comes to high-stake examinations, given that a large part of Bharat is not digital? I mean, students coming from state board schools may or may not have familiarity with digital in the manner that we'd like. So, any thoughts there?
Oh, why he's saying? Because he knows I'm pro-digital. So
I'm also pro-digital.
Yeah, okay. I think it brings a lot of transparency in the system. Once you do digital, and look at all the pen and paper tests which has happened in the country and the kind of problems as a country which we have faced on paper leaks, scams, result tampering, and so on and so forth. I think digital brings a lot of transparency and accountability on the overall system. True that the digital divide is there. That is a little bit of a problem for students who are in the rural India to come and compete with students. And if, as a setup, we provide testing centers which are available. So just like you give the RT students a free education, so saying that anybody who's preparing for NEET, these are the 20 centers where you can go and do free testing for yourself. And I think there in the country there are 4 or 5 big players who have large infrastructures on testing. Government can give them coupon, those guys can go and prepare for that. So there are solutions available, but trust me, with the digital assessment, we would know 1,000 times more about the learner, about the education system. I keep talking about one parallel incidents. Pharma industry, sometime in the early 19th century, built a blood report, through which the whole medical world advanced so much, they don't give you generic medicines now. They give you specific medicines. In education, once you bring digital assessment and more digital assessment, we will be far more sharper to give students a specific input saying that this is where you're not doing good, this is where you're doing good. Imagine you find out one particular state where all the students are not doing good in math, or one district where students are not doing good in math. You know that, okay, I need to do teachers training for math teachers in this particular district. So as education as a department, state department will give a lot of insights, and then you have the course correction. Today, On generic information, we are trying to do some course correction, and that's not good enough.
Right, so online assessments could be a great prescription, and
just one point to the Ujjwal point. See why this kind of assessment is needed. So he was talking about the concept of the pathological lab. In the hall, otherwise also in the world, we know about the GPS, fine? And we use GPS. Just imagine GPS for education. So what does GPS, you can say, what GPS does? Simply GPS tells you about the continuous positioning. The moment you lock your destination, आप यहाँ पे हैं, यहाँ पे, यहाँ पे हैं, यू टर्न लो, जाम है, XYZ, इतना टाइम लगेगा. Just imagine a class student of 7, 8, 9, etc. or 10 using a GPS kind of system where he is knowing कि हम कहाँ फंस रहे हैं, कहाँ जा रहे हैं, कितना देर है, कितना टाइम लगेगा, where to intervene specifically, and just 30 seconds. इंडिया में गवर्नमेंट एग्जामिनेशन की बहुत मारामारी है. आप इस तरह से देखो कि एक स्टूडेंट का इस संडे को एग्जामिनेशन है, लेट्स से कैट और एसएससी, फाइन, और वो प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस बना रहा है, अपने सवाल सॉल्व कर रहा है, एंड नोटिफिकेशन कम्स कि बॉस चांसेस बेहतर है कि अगर तुम नंबर सिस्टम कर लो तो इट्स बेटर. ओवरऑल असेसमेंट दिखा रहा है कि तुम्हारा प्रॉफिट एंड लॉस तो तुम मैनेज कर लोगे, और अगर हम एक कंपैरेटिव असेसमेंट भी कर रहे हैं तो वहाँ पे भी दिख रहा है कि हो जाएगा, बट ये फंसा सकता है तुमको. सो इवन इन दैट काइंड ऑफ ए स्मॉलेस्ट थिंग यू कैन सी कि हाउ गुड असेसमेंट कैन डू इट.
right. So what gets measured is what gets done. Mr. Peri, do you have a point?
We need to go for transparency. We need to go for fairness and equity also. And both have to go hand in hand. I am never against transparency. Transparency and equity must go in hand. And the reason why I am saying this is, for example, in a simple examination, we'll test my son and my driver's son and say, okay, my son got 98%, he got 70%. The question that we should be able to find out as a system is which one is better. Is 98% better when he's come through my and go through Ujjwal's coaching classes every single day, and the child who's a daughter sitting in Himachal and studied with nothing in her hand and got 70%, which is better? And the reason why I'm saying this is, I'm just taking a guess at this point in time, none of the four of us would have been toppers in our class, but the toppers in our class would possibly be working for us at this point in time. So topper doesn't determine anything beyond a point. And to take a judgment on those kids at that age and say, oh, you are better than this because you got 98.7 and you got 98.6, I think we should, I'm just saying that a system must find a way of balancing these two things. I'm always for transparency. I'm always for, at the same time, fairness also. And both must go in hand. At this point in time, the government, in its ease, because it's very easy to say, listen, I've only looked at the number and this is the number, because then there is no debate, there is no conversation about it, right? So you simply, because you don't come up with a system, you are just taking the easy way out of saying I'm getting 98.7 is getting the seat as compared to 98.6. And that, I think, we need to find a better way. At this point, I don't have a solution. I'm only throwing questions back at you. I'm sorry about that, but that's where it is.
Right, so I think we need to look at the metric with a different lens. Someone who gets the highest marks is possibly, that's not the best outcome to look at. And maybe digital can throw a lot of data and insights.
By the way, JEE toppers don't perform well at IITs. Just be clear about that. All research shows that. The toppers of JEE are not the toppers at IIT level. And the toppers of IIT are not succeeding in their life as compared to maybe the guys who are in the middle. So,
right. We have a nudge to wrap this up, but I want to get a quick perspective from all of you on what are the next plausible steps that will accelerate the adoption of digital and make it a meaningful adoption, not just adoption for namesake, but impact-driven adoption is what we need, and what is it that according to you can enable that?
Before that, I just have 1 minute, 30 seconds I want to take. I think beyond digital learning that we are all talking about, and we are all advocates of digital learning, there's one important thing that we're missing, which is your human skills or power skills that we call, your critical thinking. And that's all comes from the education end of it, logical thinking, critical thinking, problem solving, empathy. I mean, these are the things that we also need to include when we talk about digital learning, which we are missing at a bigger piece. And that's exactly what Mahesh said. Person in Himachal Pradesh got 70 without any aid, but my son got 98. It doesn't really, does he have that critical thing? So problem solving, life-saving, problem-solving things, absolutely. I mean, those are the things that we need to look at. From adoption perspective, I think I'm very advocate of it. There's a quality content available even in the higher, and whatever amount has been invested by whether it's government of India or the private organization or even the institutions, the drive to use digital programs is very much, and it starts with the instructions or our teachers to push digital adoption. That's where it starts, because I have seen they take subscriptions from us, but I see the usage is below 5%, 6%. We are talking about even people still love to have a physical book in their hand. Yes, it is going to be there for a longer time in India, but it'll not change overnight, and there should be a push from the educators push. That's what I would say.
Great. Final word from any of you.
See, who is going to be the key pillar in the implementation? The office. The one office, it's not a state or government or anything else for that matter. The one office which is very, you can say the critical is the office of principals, office of vice chancellors, and etc. Fine. Now there you will find the real challenge. क्योंकि उनके ईगोज बहुत हैं साहब. उनको ये लगता है कि वो जहाँ से शुरू होते हैं वहीं पे एजुकेशन शुरू होती है, वहीं पे ख़त्म हो जाती है. तो वाइस चांसलर से डील करना और प्रिंसिपल से डील करना वो एक अलग ही बॉल गेम है. It's a really very big challenge.
I have a simple perspective. I think the onus lies on us. People who are trying to do digital education. Who are we competing with? We are not competing with anybody within this sector. We are competing with YouTube Reels and Instagrams. See, till the time we don't make our content so engaging, so much good that the learner sees the values in learning, the digital learning will compete against entertainment. And it is on us to build content, whether this is a live class, whether it is the canned content or the assessment or anything else, has to be that level that it first helps in thinking skills, logical skills, but also help that learning to happen. When I came to a platform, I didn't know this. I'm on the platform, that learning has happened. And there's a lot of research, there's a lot of real hard work, because digital learning, even though it's 20, 30 years old, but in an environment where the learner is only going to be there for half an hour, and after half an hour, what will he come out as? What the learning would have happened is a big, big question, which we within our organization try to answer. I think a lot of people across the globe are trying to answer, saying that end outcome is that learning should happen. And why learner after 5 minutes does not find it interesting and leaves, and he thinks YouTube Reels are good enough, is something which is an introspection for all of us. We have to make ourselves better. By telling that learner is not coming to us is not going to solve the problem.
Right. So final word from you. No?
Final word is, I think, private sector is needed. There is no option. We need to, I think, make a very good case of ourselves with impact, with outcomes, so that the government takes us a lot more seriously. And the second point is, I think we must impress on the government to invest a lot more. You know, one of the things on NEP is that it also talks of 6% of GDP to be spent. We're still at 3%. It's not moved an inch. So what they've done is, the government has done is all the regulatory framework and those kind of things they were opening up, because that doesn't require money. But the 6% part of it, there is not much conversation on that, and we must keep talking about that.
All right. Thank you all of you for your very nuanced perspectives. I don't know if you have time for questions, but yeah. Okay.
There is something called public international law and private international law. Very politely, I will suggest that without law, this whole exercise is meaningless. I've gone through this pain. At present, I am a sovereign authority with governments and courts. Yet, still have to read my resume every time I visit any location. So there is no acceptance and knowledge pertaining to law, and because of that, professionals like you are doing an excellent work to build AI mediums more effective is not taken into right accountability. So law is to be taught very importantly. I mean, This is what I believe as a sovereign authority with courts and governments. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think the perspective is that as an education system, there are 3 or 4 things which we are not doing and we should do. Question is who will do it. So law is definitely one of them, but financial literacy is second thing. But there's one thing globally which everybody is saying, that where did the moral base has gone? What has happened to that area where we used to teach children honesty, truthfulness, on stuff like that? Empathy. And I really like the work which University of Pennsylvania did over the years, and among the lot of things, there is a new skill which they are talking about called self-control. So we can debate about this, that who is taking this, but there are 3 or 4 things as a society, as an education system, we have to bring in, so that one, people understand their rights from a law perspective, financial literacy, a lot of young men and women, how should I live my life so that I can be self-dependent for life, and something like a skill which is earlier called honesty, truthfulness, called self-control, now is a new skill. How do you live around that? That if you just put that into any perspective, life becomes easy. Road rage to I'm alone, my boss is not watching me, to any perspective, self-control works. So we are having these debates across different parts. Some are going to schooling system, some are yet to go to schooling system. But your perspective is very right. Thank you.
Right. All true, Ujjwal. I think one of the key things that we all have to do, and it is very important that we do from the K-12 piece, is usage of digital programs more ethically. Not to use it to cheat. We have seen all of those, so many things happening. I think we need to teach them to use it as a friend when it is required, rather than using it as and when they want it, right? So it should be an enabler, not a kind of become a disabler to them over a period of, like, I cannot do anything without my phone, I cannot do anything without, no. Those are the things I think we need to inculcate, and it has to start from home to school to the higher education. That's what my view is on about digital learning.
Right, fair point. So I think we're ending on a good note. I think...
No, it's okay. It's finished.
Yeah. I mean, the panelists are around, so we could probably do this offline, but we'll have to wrap it up in the interest of time. Okay, sure. Go ahead, please.
Oh, yes? Okay. Thank you, sirs, for your talk. My name is Jeanette. I'm here with the Australian Trade Delegation for EdTech. Something I'm curious about, in our research, we're looking at a concept called exponential intelligence, helping students create the future rather than just respond to it. I'm wondering how you see, in the Indian market, yourself partnering with colleagues across the world to give that global context to students, and how might we work together to build the future of the global economy as well as India's?
I mean, NEP talks about internationalization to a great degree, so...
Yeah, I think the government of India, last week they've announced something on G20, based on the G20 principle, that they will allow certain country profs to come and teach here, right? And this is one of the measures that they're talking about. A lot of foreign universities are talking, is what I understand. A few of them already opened up. The government of India is allowing partnership. The government of India is allowing research collaborations. The government of India is allowing faculty exchanges and student exchanges much more easier than what it was earlier. So at a certain level, at a base level, they started off very, very well and possibly very, very fast. You will see that this only accelerating moving forward, because I know at this point in time that every single university in India would have at least on an average of 20 plus collaborations. And that can be faculty exchange, research exchange, student exchange, or even going much beyond that of doing a twinning program kind of a thing, 2+2 kind of model. And that's really, really speeding up. The only thing that you must remember when you're dealing with any Indian institution, at this point in time in India, it is not for profit. In Australia, it's not the case possibly. And that seems to be a stumbling block. But quite a few universities are establishing Gift City, which are devoid of any rules. So you actually have a for-profit company setting up, in fact, one of the universities of Australia set it up in Gift City in Ahmedabad, which is a proper thing, right? So you actually see a lot more progress in the last 3-4 years on internationalization that I did not see in the last 30-40 years.
And I'll tell you a actual implementation part of this. So Government of India runs a Startup India. In Startup India, there's a project which IIT Kanpur runs on the similar topic. Last year, 15,000 school students participated in that. 15,000 schools from 1,000 plus schools. seeing that this year there are two large companies, Samsung and HCL, launched a similar program. They are all AI and tech, which is robotics. Around that, there's a competition which has started saying that build your own future. So there's Samsung runs Future of Tomorrow or something like that, a program. And some places, even there are 5,000-6,000 schools are participating, 15,000-20,000 school students are participating. So the needle is moving at the grassroots level. A lot of work is happening. This all started with Startup India initiative, but I think slowly and gradually private companies have started using that as well.
Any final questions? Great. So I think we've covered a lot of ground. We talked about digitization, but we also talked about empathy in education, ethics in education. And I think the overall objective is really to empower the ecosystem. Hopefully, we can do that jointly. Thank you. You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you, IMAI, for bringing this panel together. Thank you, everyone.